What's good, my lovely peoples? It's your main man, Solace, the humble wise one. Now, today I want to do this video discussing the Sumerian Kings list and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now, these two ancient texts, they allow you to see how we're being robbed of our lifespan. Meaning, men are supposed to live 1,000 years or so, not just 120 years. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. Now, through the Sumerian Kings list and the Epic of Gilgamesh, it shows you an interesting thing about the lifespan of men. Now, no one's really touched on what I'm about to touch on, but I want to give y'all some history of the Kings list and the Epic of Gilgamesh, so that you can understand what I mean when I say we're supposed to live 1,000 years or so. But something was purposely done, and those of the past knew what was done. And a lot of them was in search for the cure of whatever was done to shorten the lifespan. And I want to prove that to y'all through these texts. Now, before I go into this video, because I know people like to look for contradictions, and being as though I said we are in hell, I know people will try to confuse themselves and say, how does this go with hell? It doesn't contradict us being in hell in any way. This is just history of what has happened here over millennia. So, grasp that. I'm just breaking down the history of the things that transpired here over millennia. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you're in hell. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp, but this video is not about that. So let me basically go into this video explaining to y'all how we're supposed to live 1,000 years and better. Now, let me give you a little history on the Kings list. Now, I wrote down their names because their names are ridiculous and I just can't seem to remember them or barely pronunciate them. So it's a deep thing. So I wrote the names down. Now I want to give y'all some history on the Kings list for those who may not be familiar. Now the Kings list is basically a list of kings that date all the way back 432,000 years. Now it doesn't date back from our present time, but let's say maybe about 2500 BC. All the way back 432,000 years. It gives you a list of kings and the cities that they ruled. So basically, the cities that reigned, it gives you the names of the kings and how long those kings reigned in that city. Until the next city begin to reign, and it gives you the names of those kings. So it basically breaks it down like that. Now, I'm going to break down some of the lists for y'all so y'all can better understand what I'm saying. Now, the Sumerian Kings list was written on like a block clay tablet. And over years, meaning over the 432,000 year span, it was revised. And, the history was updated on another block stone tablet or whatever. But it was never updated anymore past 2500 BC or so. So it hasn't been updated over the last 4,000, 5,000 years. But it has been revised. And the newest one we have is that one. That's from about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. Now let me give y'all a quick breakdown of the actual tablets. Now, the tablet basically says, the kingship descended from the heavens here. And then it tells you the first city that was built. So the first city that was built was Eridu. And there was two kings that reigned in Eridu. So Eridu was the first city that was built, and it ruled over the whole world. And it had two kings during its reign. One of the kings' names was Alulim, and he reigned for 28,800 years. The second king's name was Alagar, and he ruled for 36,000 years. So you have 64,800 years that the city of Eridu reigned over the world. And those two kings are the two kings that ruled in Eridu. One reigned for 28,000 years, 800 years. One ruled for 28,800 years. The other one ruled for 36,000 years. So you get an understanding that these kings were living thousands of years. Now, the second city was built, and it was called Bactabera. And I guess this city went to war with Eridu, and it took the power away from Eridu. So now Bactabera is the city that rules the world. And Bactabera had three kings. The first one was Enmenluana, which reigned for 43,200 years. The second king was Enmengalana. He ruled for 28,000 years. And the third king was Dumuzi, and he ruled for 36,000 years. So the city of Bactabera, which was the second city, basically had three kings. And the city of Bactabera ruled the world for 108,000 years before it fell to the next city that was built, which was Larak. And Larak had one king only, and Larak reigned over the world for 28,000 years. And that one king, his name is hard, so we'll call him Zid-Anna. But that one king, he reigned for 28,000 years. And that was the whole time of the city of Larak. Then the city of Larak fell, and the city of Separ basically came into power and reigned. This is the fourth city. Now, the fourth city reigned for 21,000 years, and it had one king also, which was the king Enmendarana, which ruled for the 21,000 years. Then after that, you had the fifth city, which was Surapak. And Surapak basically ruled the world. That city reigned over the world for 18,600 years, and it was ran by King Ubaratutu. So this would be everything that happened before the flood and those that reigned. So you basically have 5 different cities that were built before the flood. You had 8 different kings that reigned in these cities in different times. And this totals up to 385,200 years of king's history. Then the flood comes. Then after the flood, the first city that was built was Kis. And Kis had 23 kings. So it writes it the same way as those I broke down prior to this. So the first king of Kis was Gisser. He ruled for 1,200 years. The second king of Kis was Kalasini Bela, or Kalasina Bel. He reigned for 900 years. And so on and so on. 23 kings. And Kis was in power for 23,310 years. And these 23 kings ruled over Kis for about 1,200, 900 years apiece. Then Kis fell, and Iana, the city of Iana, which is the second city after the flood, begins to reign over the world. And Iana had 12 kings and a 2,310-year reign over the world. Now the first king was the son of Utu, and he ruled for 324 years. The second king was Enmekar, and he ruled for 420 years. The third king was Lugubanda, and he ruled for 1,200 years. The fourth king was Dumuzi, and he ruled for 100 years. The fifth king was Gilgamesh, and he ruled for 126 years. And so on and so forth. But we're going to stop there, because I want you to see something very interesting. Before the flood, the kings lived long, meaning the shortest reigning king reigned for 18,600 years, meaning everybody prior to the flood lived well over 18,000 years. Then when the flood came, no one lived over 1,200 years. Then, when you get to the second city after the flood, once you get to the fourth king, which is the Muzi, no one lives past 126 years. Grasp that. Before the flood, they lived past 18,000 years. After the flood, they don't live past 1,200. Then when you get to, let's say, the seventh or eighth king after the flood, they don't live past 126 years. Or they don't reign past that. Meaning they don't live much longer than that. So you got to ask yourself, why? What happened? Why did they stop living so long like that? And it was getting cut off. Now you have to understand, the kingship would go back and forth between the same lands. Like Kis is on the list more than once. The city of Kis is on the list more than once. The city of Uruk is on the list more than once. Now when you get to the city of Kis after the flood, because the city of Kis ruled right after the flood, and men were ruling there for 1,200 years. When you get to the city of Kis, they were still living long after everybody else. But eventually they didn't either. But it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. So the question would be, why did the lifespans shorten when you get around the Gilgamesh time? So it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. Now, the Epic of Gilgamesh is a part of the KingsList. All of this is together. So now I want to break down the Epic of Gilgamesh, because in the Epic of Gilgamesh, he would be the king that was around the time when the lifespan shortened. Meaning one king before him, two kings before Gilgamesh, men were living to be 1,200 years old. Then when you get to the king right before Gilgamesh, men don't live past 126. So now in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh is trying to find this flower to extend his life long again. So Gilgamesh, in the story Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh understands that men are supposed to live long. And he's trying to find this flower to regain his long life. So it's a deep thing. People look at the Epic of Gilgamesh as if men live short, and Gilgamesh was trying to find something special. No. You got to remember, Gilgamesh is in a time where men lived long. So that's like your grandparents lived to be 1,200. Then your mother, when she's born, nobody from your mother's generation lived past 126. So you like, hold on, I know men live long. This is something that just happened. So Gilgamesh fully understood, something's wrong, I got to get things back right. So the Epic of Gilgamesh basically breaks down his tale about him and Enkidu and all of this, and how they are basically looking for this flower or whatever. Basically, it tells you the story of Gilgamesh and Enkidu in their life, in their friendship together. But then Enkidu dies. And when Enkidu dies, it troubles Gilgamesh, because he knows he's close to the age that men die. Now, Enkidu was murdered, but it doesn't matter. When Enkidu died, it reminded him of death. Because you have to remember, men lived to be 1,200 years old around his time. That's the normal. But this new thing just happened where men are dying young. So when he sees Enkidu die, it reminds him like, oh shit, I'm like 98. I'm be dead soon. So now he goes and searches for this flower because he wants to regain that long life that the generation prior to his had. So it's a deep thing when you read in these ancient texts. You have to connect them. Now, Gilgamesh finds the flower or whatever to regain his life, but he loses it to a snake. But it's a deep thing you have to grasp, because in the King's List, Gilgamesh is on the King's List, and he only reigns for 126 years. So it's a deep thing y'all have to grasp. Now, a lot of people from the Kings List, they have found the oldest ones they haven't, of course, but a lot of the ones that date far back, they found the remains of these places in the kings. So you have to grasp what happened that made men stop living long. It's a deep thing you have to grasp. Somewhere in the ancient time, something was specifically done to shorten the lifespan of men. And it can be done again, because as you see through the Kings List, it was repeatedly done, meaning prior to the flood, men lived 18,000 years and more. Right after the flood, men wasn't living no more than 18,000 years. They was only living 1,200 years, but that's still long. Then, 7 kings after the flood, men is living the amount of time we live. So it's a deep thing you have to grasp. Why did that happen? What happened? Now, this is written in the Bible when it says, men of flesh and the Spirit of God won't walk with y'all, so many years will be cut down to 126 or whatever. The Bible speaks on this too. Mind you, the Bible is from this text, but it's all history, so you have to understand, when you're dealing with history, people will always take the history prior to theirs and add theirs onto it, because that's what you're supposed to do, so that the history can go concurrent. So the Bible is not necessarily a book about stealing the ancient Sumerian history, but it's basically just keeping it going. Now, when you're dealing with the Kings List, it's not just dealing with Sumeria, or what we like to call Sumeria. It's dealing with all those lands around that area, like Egypt. Egypt is on the Sumerian Kings List, in the kings that ruled there, but it's in their writings, in their language that they speak. Those who wrote it, you have to grasp what I'm saying. 5,000 years ago, men wrote this. They took the history prior to theirs, wrote that, and then added their history on it. And this kept being done all the way throughout the 432,000 year history. So I'm a king, I write down my history. Then the next king comes along. He writes down his history under mine. Thousands of years later, they take all that history and then they add on the history that's missing. You have to keep revising the history, because history don't stop. People don't stop. So this is basically what was done. Now, the city of Kis, which was the first city after the flood, I believe that's Egypt, or what we would call Kim. The city of Kis, K-I-S. I think that is Kim. You have to look at the names. A lot of the names are similar, but you have to remember, it is written by a scribe from 2500 BC sometime. So he's writing it in his language. Now, we don't know none of these languages, but it's written in his language. So he may not call the Egyptian pharaoh what we would call the Egyptian pharaoh. They may not call Egypt Kem or Egypt. It's Kis to them. So you just have to grasp. That's why I say I believe the city of Kis was Egypt, because the King's List is giving you the history from all that time. And we know Egypt was reigning different times throughout history. So you have to grasp. This list is not just dealing with one thing. It's dealing with the whole world, in whatever city was ruling the whole world. Even now, there's one city that rules the whole world, or one country that rules the whole world, but we don't see it that way. But one country rules the whole world, then they fall to the next country. So it's just breaking it down in that way. So many of the places that we have today are the same places that's on this list. Some of the places have been submerged in water, because water rises over time. So you figure 432,000 years ago, water rose a lot since then. So a lot of cities is underwater, but those that are not, they're still here. And we just call them a different name. So it's a lot of different cities and different rulers on there. But it's a deep thing that y'all have to grasp, how the lifespan was shortened. And y'all have to realize and start taking things seriously. This is not a joke. If you only live to be about 80, 100 years old, and you know, hold on, I'm supposed to live thousands of years, that's a big deal. You're being robbed of a big deal. Now, I broke down in the video the reasons why we live a shortened life, meaning the things that are done to make our lives shorten. So if you're curious on what was done to make the life shorten, I did a video already breaking that down. It wasn't no science experiment or nothing. Just simple things like air quality, food, things of this nature. Genetically modifying things in people. These things bring the shortening of the life. Now, it could have been done purposely, or it could have just been done from men being reckless. The more we do our crazy things, the more we pollute the air. It brings the quality down. This brings the lifespan down. But something was done, like deviously, to bring the lifespan down. Because before the flood, men were living 18,000 years and more. And then after the flood, it dropped all the way down to 1,200. Mind you, that's the longest living, or the longest reigning king after the flood is 1,200. People was 3, 4s, 5s. So you got to grasp. How you go from 18,000 to people only living 300, 400, 500 years? Then, 7 kings after that, 7 kings after the flood. By the time you get to the second city being built, men ain't living past 126. So you have to grasp, something was deviously done on purpose to bring about the lifespan being shortened. It wasn't a matter of a mistake of men being reckless, but men being reckless is the reason why it's still like this. Meaning men being ignorant and being reckless in the way they live, they bring a lot of harm to the life. And in them doing this, it shortens their lifespan. So this is why our lifespan never goes back up to thousands of years, because we still live in ignorance and in the reckless manner to keep it going. But it's a deep thing. A lot of things I tell you, y'all overlook. As, nothing can be done, I don't know if that's true, you have to grasp, man. We are in hell, and horrible things happen here. Like your lifespan being shortened, people being killed, people genetically modifying animals, plants, food, other people, rape, all type of crazy things happen in this existence we're in. And y'all have to just grasp. Your lifespan has been shortened to 120-something years out of 18,000. So grasp that. You're supposed to live, you still supposed to be a baby, meaning you didn't even reach 100 years old yet. So technically, you're still a baby. But you will die way before 18,000 years. And people don't seem to care about these things. Mind you, it's an easy fix, but it takes everyone. And that's what's difficult, to get everyone to grasp how deep things are. It's a very important thing y'all have to grasp. But through the Sumerian Kings list and the Epic of Gilgamesh, y'all can look these up yourself. Don't look up what men wrote about the Sumerian Kings list. Look up the Sumerian Kings list in the kings and read up on that. The individual kings, if you want. Do that. Look into that. And then you can see what I say. How the years just drop. Then go to the Epic of Gilgamesh and read how he was looking for this flower to rejuvenate his life. Look at how on the king's list, Gilgamesh only reigned for 126 years. The king before him, only 100. Then the king before him was 1,200 years. So what happened between Gilgamesh and Dumuzi where the lifespan just dropped? And then you can grasp the story of Gilgamesh and why he was looking for this flower like a fiend so he could live longer. He wasn't crazy, and he wasn't told false information. He was going on what he already knew. So you got to grasp. If you already knew everybody been living 18,000 years or so, or 1,200 years or so, and now all of a sudden everybody keep dying before they even reach 100, you going to be like, I need to find the cure. So you have to grasp, whatever was done, it was like a disease almost, or a sickness that could be cured through a medicinal plant. It's like I said, ancient voodoo was the knowledge of the root, the medicinal plants, and the different plants on this earth mixed and mingled together. They all hold a recipe for something, whether it be healing, harming, or whatever, an elixir, whatever. So he knew the cure for what was making people die faster. He knew the cure for it. And that's the thing that we have to grasp, because the cure is still here. Because these stories are about people who were here. So y'all have to grasp, it's a deep thing. But it's your main man, Solace, the humble wise one. I hope someone got something out of that.